Hello, everybody. My name is Melanie Harwood, and we are here today for the Sustainable Schools Virtual Summit. And I have an incredible guest with us who's going to tell us about a project that is going to totally blow your minds. Be ready to be amazed. John, tell us all about you and all about your project and take it away. The floor is yours.
Wow, thank you, Melanie. Thanks for the invitation. Yeah, my name is John Bunzl. The project that I started some years ago is called the Simultaneous Policy, and it's a campaign to get countries to simultaneously cooperate to solve problems like climate change, like all the many global, global problems that we're faced today, which require a global approach. So whether it's climate change or whether it's vaccine production and fair distribution, whether it's getting rid of nuclear weapons, all of these problems suffer from what's called the prisoner's dilemma. And that's a little bit like a group of kids fighting over a packet of sandwiches. And of course, no kid can give up the fight because otherwise they won't get any bit of the sandwich. But if they carry on fighting, the sandwiches will be destroyed. And that's the vicious circle that the countries around the world are stuck in today. And the only way out of that vicious circle is if everyone agrees to simultaneously stop fighting and share the sandwiches. And that is what the simultaneous policy is all about. It's also a clever way you can use your vote if you're a voter. But a lot of you may not be voters, but that's not a problem because politicians know that you soon will be. And so you can sign up, even if you're not a voter, you can sign up to Simpol now, and we will, you tell us where you live. That will allow us to tell politicians in that area that you're a supporter, so they will know that you're going to be giving preference to politicians and parties that support the Simultaneous Policy campaign. And those that don't are going to lose votes to those that do. And in that way, already we've got 100 members of the UK Parliament have signed up to Simpol. We've got about 15 members of Parliament in Ireland, some in Germany, some in Australia, some in the European Parliament. It's beginning to spread. And so we need students, we need kids, we need parents, we need everybody to get behind this because politicians are stuck in a vicious circle. They're not going to come out of it without our input and help and the incentive that our votes can give. So that's what Simpol's all about.
So John, now that you've completely blown our minds, because I never even considered this. You sent me your email and I watched your video and I just sat here with my jaw on the floor saying, why didn't I think of that? Okay, because I just thought, okay, this is, I mean, this is genius stuff. This is just amazing.
Well, thank you.
So what I'm going to do, oh, there you go, I've just dropped it. What I'm going to do, at the end of your talk, with your permission, I'm going to include, folks, if you're watching John's talk on a page, below the page, I'm going to include John's Simpol video. It's an explainer, which really guides you through it. So once you've watched this, watch that little video because it is fantastic. And while we've been thinking about this, now that you've tweaked my interest, how are we going to do research on this? And how are we going to get Simpol out to a much wider audience? So what is the plan?
Well, I mean, I think working with students and school kids is all over the world is a fantastic way in for Simpol because it's clearly Simpol is not something that's going to happen tomorrow, but it's a slightly more long-term campaign. But ultimately, it's the only way, as far as I can see, that we're really going to solve not just climate change, but all of these global problems together. Because they're all interconnected. And so they need, it's almost more about, it's not even about politics, it's about civics. It's about, we live in a global world, we need some form of global regulation and governance to regulate the planet and business and our emissions and all the rest of it. And so it's actually, in fact, Melanie, it's actually about our evolution. It's not even just about climate change, it's about even more than that. So, you know, if you go back through the eons of human evolution, we started off as small hunter-gatherer families and tribes, and then, you know, other tribes came along and there was competition, so they got together to make bigger tribes, and then you had middle-aged small states, and then still larger nation states. And so there's been this constant progression of human social units or governance units to ever larger scales. And now we're facing the global scale. And that doesn't mean a world government, but it does mean international simultaneous cooperation. And that's the next step in our evolution. That's where evolution wants to take us. And I think that's for me, that's such an inspiring narrative that I think kids and students will resonate with. And it also, I think, explains why the world is so scary at the moment, why everything seems to be falling apart, because before you go up to a new level of cooperation, you have to go through the crisis. You have to go through the crisis point where things can collapse, but they can also go up to a new higher level of coherence and cooperation. And so that's what we're about.
John, who's the one that, is it your mummy or dad that has made you this clever? Where do you get your brains from?
It has to be both, doesn't it? But actually, it was my kids as well, because the whole idea for Simpol came to me about 20 years ago, and I was having lunch with my family and my mum and my kid. My dad had passed away by then, but my kids were talking about climate change, and because they were covering it at school. And after the meal, and perhaps after a couple of glasses of wine, my mother sort of turned around to me and said, well, what would you do about climate change, John? And just in that sort of moment of challenge, and I think partly because of my business background and my knowledge of the way the global economy works, I realized, well, it would have to happen simultaneously, because no government is going to move first for fear of harming its economy. But if they all move together, nobody loses out, everybody wins, you know. And so I think that was, you know, I have to thank my kids and my parents for that. But it is, you know, I think almost, I mean, the campaign is of course vital, but it's actually seeing the world in a new way. Because right now, Melanie, most campaigners are sort of shouting at governments, basically. They're basically, you know, they're trying to say, well, if we just shout loud enough and if we just protest long enough, the government will do X, Y, Z. But what they don't realize is that no government can really move substantively unless other governments move as well. And so it's a way of making it in everyone's self-interest to move.
John, have you ever attended a COP, a Conference of the Parties, the UN Conference of the Parties?
I haven't. And I know there's one coming up in Glasgow at the end of this year. And of course, the whole COP process, the whole basis of that is the idea that all nations kind of should move together. But there are two problems with the COP process. One is that there's only one issue on the table, and that is carbon emissions reductions. And of course, with any single issue, there will always be some nations that win, others that lose, and the losers, of course, have no incentive or no immediate incentive to cooperate. So under Simpol, what we are proposing is a multi-issue framework. So if you have two policies together, for example, you might have a global tax on wealth or on multinational corporations, and so the proceeds of the tax can be used to pay off the losers on the climate part of the agreement. And in that way, you make immediate substantive action in every nation's self-interest, right? But all the while we're trying to deal with just one issue at a time, there's no way out. We couldn't design a worse way of trying to make international agreements. And the second problem with the COP process, Melanie, is that it's all about targets. It's all about agreeing on targets. But the problem with targets is that no government knows exactly what every other government is going to actually do to achieve those targets. And so they're all in a state of uncertainty. They don't quite know what every other government is going to do, whether they're going to do it. And so, of course, nobody does anything, or they only make very, very tiny steps, but not the really big steps that we all know are so urgent. And so I think Simpol is it's a way of, you know, that's why I say it's a conflict resolution tool, but it's one that really gets to the bottom of how to cooperate properly and how to design cooperation with the best chance of success in mind. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
So when we went to COP24 in Katowice in Poland, I'd never been to a COP, and we went for 2 days, and I had my 11-year, my daughter was 11, and I was taking it, and you know, you just don't take children to Conference of the Parties, and it was the first year that Greta Thunberg did her talk to the COP. And so there was Hannah. So people were stopping Hannah Jane, going, "Are you Greta?" She said, "No, I'm Hannah Jane." And John was sort of carrying, because my husband's a cameraman, and he's got the camera and he's filming, and it's massive. And we were just walking, and I just saw, what is this? And it's like a big expo. It's nothing more than an expo, folks. If you're listening to this or watching this, COP is a talking shop. It's just, everybody has a stand. Every little UN agency has a stand, and they've got their cards and their little flyers and their little things, and they all want to have a chat. And then you see everybody else running around like crazy trying to get business cards. And then there's this big hall, the last one was called the Baker Hall. And that's where all of the nations that are invited, that are members of the Conference of the Parties, and each one gets 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Now, how do you come to any agreement after 3 minutes? And you see everybody running around. And we did 2 days, and we were lucky. We got a live press conference, and we launched Educate Global at that one. And I remember Angus was sitting there. Angus Mackay, if he's watching this, he's going to hate me, from Unitar, and he was kicking me under the table going, "No more than 80 schools, Harwood, no more than 80 schools in England." And I'm like, yeah, 80 schools in England. And well, and then, you know, the rest is Educate Global just sort of like took on a life of its own.
Yeah, I mean, you've done fantastically.
You know, and everybody now messages us and has lots of meetings with us saying, "And how did you do it?" And we said, "We don't know." We have no idea. It just sort of did itself. How much did it cost? You know, how much have you been paid? Like, nothing. How did you? And they're looking at us going, "No." Anyway, then we went to Conference of the Parties. So learning from that COP24. When we went to Conference of the Parties 25, I went with Tim Collins. Tim went with me, and he did all the planning. So Tim had all of our press conferences. He had all of our, he had everything set out on a spreadsheet, because Tim is very organized. You see, I've got ADD. I like doing loads of other things. Tim's like, "Focus, Mel, focus. We got to get." And my mission to him was, we are going to get 12 live press conferences. And Chile was obviously cancelled because there was a whole lot of stuff going on in Chile, upheaval. So they moved the Conference of the Parties 25 to Madrid. So I was like, yeah, this is great. This is closer. We don't have to fly. Just close. And we went in, and because they'd moved everything, there was a bit of a disconnect. So the media center hadn't been set up properly, and the broadcast center wasn't right. So we were trying to submit all of our press conference and say, we've booked this, we've booked this. We managed to get 6 live press conferences. Nearly killed us. I don't know why I even set a goal of 12. I mean, crazy. But it's only when you're running around a Conference of the Parties and you're trying to meet with people and arrange things, and you say, "Here's your card," and you stop people and you say, "Give me your card," and you just think, and at the end of it, you get something called the COP blues, because you come home and you think, what was that all about?
Yeah.
What did we achieve?
Melanie, now you know why I don't go.
I mean, it's just, and it's the more that you think about it, and it was when I saw your Simpol explainer, I just thought, that is it. Now we know, because we've had COVID, that everything has changed, because we always have been saying we shouldn't be flying. We shouldn't be flying to these meetings for a couple of minutes to do a talk. When we did our COP25, we live streamed using Skype teachers from all over the world. And I remember the guys in the the audio visual team, they were going, no, it's not set up for that. We're going to have feedback. And I said, look, just leave it with me. I'm going to have the laptop here. Give me your laptop. We're going to get Skype onto this laptop. And then what we'll do is, so we don't have feedback, I will message them using the Skype messenger. And then when they have to talk, I'll say, talk. They'll speak for a minute and then they'll stop. And the guy said, oh, it's not going to happen. It's okay. Anyway, it was great, because we managed to, even though we were on that platform, we were Skyping in loads of people. And I just said to John when I got back, we shouldn't have even gone. We could have just done that all online. That's Zoom. And then COVID, and now look at all these. We've never, ever had as many meetings in our lives as we've had since this.
Yeah, same with me. Same with me.
I mean, we don't even know. I mean, if I don't have Calendly on my phone, I mean, even with you, look at that. My Calendly goes meeting 10 minutes. 5 minutes.
That's
now.
Right.
And now what I really need is for Calendly to go, Mel, stop what you're doing. Get onto that next meeting straight away.
Megaphone.
Yeah. John, where to from here? What is the next step for us to get Simpol into as many schools and education outlets as we possibly can around the world? And should we, you can tell me no, slap me down and say no, should we create some lessons on why Simpol exists? And can we make those lessons available to all of our Educate Global Award schools around the world?
Definitely, Mel. I mean, I've been dying to do this. I mean, I think that obviously for second, I think Simpol is probably going to be of more interest to secondary education kids. Or students, should I say, but also you spoke to my colleague Rob Cobbold, who goes into schools and to colleges and teaches about the prisoner's dilemma, the prisoner's dilemma games, and plays the games with the students, with the kids, so that they understand the kind of dilemma. It's like your own little cop. Whatever, a mini cop, really. And it shows the dilemma that they're all in. And but I'd love to work with you to develop. I mean, I'm not an education. I'm a businessman by trade, so I'm not an educationalist. But there are quite a few videos that we have that explain Simpol, that explain the evolutionary context of Simpol and where we are today. And I'd love to do that with you, because I think it would be really interesting for the kids, because I think kids want to know, they don't just want to know what, they want to know why. They want to know why
how do we sort it?
These politicians not solving this, and so I think Simpol is got a huge, it's got a huge educational potential, and I'd love to develop it with you.
Well, that's it. You have no choice. I know where you live. I have your email. I have your number. I know Roberts, and I'll track you down.
Well, I'd love to. I mean, if someone can sort of help me to make it appropriate for the different age ranges or different, different year levels, then that would be fantastic. Yeah,
it's a great idea. When we had, it was crazy. When just before COVID, before March last year, Denise and I and our team, we were wading through like 3,900 support desk tickets a day. And it was full on. We just had teachers coming at us from around the world. And then COVID lockdown, and it was like almost like I was like, and I said to Denise, okay, we can take our pedals off the metal, and what we can do is we can look at all of the feedback that we've been getting, and we can focus on fixing all the bits that we know are not quite working for us, not quite working for our teachers in our schools. And we can, and there was this little email that came in. It's a bit like yours. I mean, you were sent to me by an angel.
By Alan,
I mean,
yeah.
Alan, if you're listening, you are an angel on earth.
He's a bit of an ugly angel, but he's still an angel.
He's an angel. And I got this email, and it was a teacher, and her name was Lisa Pugh, and she said, I've been trying to get my school to do this project that I've created, and I've got these challenges, and I said, so I thought, what is she doing? And I emailed her back, because I was just on this hamster wheel, this treadmill of answering queries and which school and how we were going to book in Bronze Award deliveries and onboarding. It was mental. And I answered this email, and I said to her, what's this? What are you talking about? You know, I'm intrigued. So she said, I've got this idea to teach children all about tangible action towards their carbon footprint. I went, oh yeah. So she said, I said, come on, send me a sample. What you got? So she sent me this, and I was like, oh, I've been waiting for this. And I said, right, get your camera. We're going down to Devon. And he said, what do you mean? We can't do that. And I said, I've got her address. We're going down. And off we went. We turned up, and I said to her, okay, Lisa, carbon footprint buster challenge. You're going to present it for me. She said, well, how did you know where I live? And I said, I'm here. And she lives in this incredible forest. It's her own forest. She lives off grid in a yurt, and her husband, Mark, he was one of the very first qualified permaculture and biodiversity specialists. I mean, knows his stuff. So there she was, writing it all down. And it was just like, everything was magical, because the lighting, I couldn't have paid for a lighting crew to give me lighting like that. And there we all were. And every now and then I came out, and I had to do, I was one of the background audience doing my thing. And then the day ended, and she said, well, we're not finished yet. I said, that's okay. We'll stay over. And she said, but there's nowhere for you to stay. And I said, we'll sleep in the van. And John was looking at me going, no, we can't sleep in the van. I said, we will. We're going to sleep in the van. And the next morning, I mean, we looked terrible, but we got it. And as we're driving away, John says to me, you were like a dog with a bone. You were not going to let that. I said, no, because I've been waiting for that carbon footprint buster challenge for the last, I said, it's one of the pieces of the puzzle, because it's all well and good teaching teachers how to do something, but if they don't have a program that actually goes out and engages all the stakeholders, we're not doing anything. We're just giving away badges and certificates, Yeah. And then we never hear from anybody. I want tangible action. So Absolutely. John spent a couple of months editing it, and that's what we're going to do with you, John. We are going to work with you and Robert, and we'll get Lisa in, and we'll get some head teachers in, and they're all going to have a look at it, and we're going to create little 4-minute introductions, year 7, year 8, year 9. And we're going to be looking at, because we just need 5 weeks, half-term block, just a lesson a week, and just introducing these, because they're quite heavy concepts. You can't just go, oh, well, here's the video. You've got to immerse yourself and develop and grow. Did you write a book?
Yes, I did. It's called the Simpol Solution. Yeah. There
you go. So we'll have to include the book as a textbook.
Yeah, but there's lots of ways that you can convey Simpol in very, very simple ways that anybody can. Look, what you've got to realize is the kids know more than the politicians. If you give kids a football and you tell them just to go outside to play football for 20 minutes, they will cooperate. to agree where the goals should be, where the lines are, you know, what's sort of permissible and what isn't. Okay, they pick teams and then they compete. They do the competition, and the competition takes place within the cooperative framework that they've all set up. Governance 101, there it is, simple, you know. But at the global level today, we've got one global playing field, but we've got 200 referees, we've got 200 governments, and it's no wonder it's chaos. And they're all competing with each other to get the 22 players to come and play on their part of the pitch. And it's chaos. You know, so kids can understand all of this stuff much, much easier than the politicians can.
What is your ultimate dream or vision to come from this, John?
Well, my ultimate vision is that we citizens around the world use Simpol to drive our governments towards to the cooperation necessary to solve climate change, to solve all of these global issues that are keep hitting us one after another. You know, COVID being just the latest. And, you know, if you have a global economy, but you have governance only on the national level, of course it's going to be chaos. You've got to have governance, or at least cooperation, on the same level as the economy that you're trying to govern. It's not rocket science, sorry to use that phrase, but it's really not difficult to understand. And cooperation needs to be designed intelligently, and it needs to be designed in such a way of getting that, you know, there's no guarantee that it'll work, but you have to give it the maximum chance of, you know, the maximum chance of success. And so my dream is that one day we will have citizens driving politicians to implement the simultaneous policy, and that policy will be designed not by them, but by us, by citizens in a kind of citizen assembly, some, you know, in national citizens assemblies to begin with, and then, you know, negotiating the global policy, multi-issue policy packages that will solve these problems. And if nations implement them together, we'll all win.
John, if I could wave a magic wand and I could say to you, pick a date, what would you choose?
Well, it could, you know, what the only barrier to it, Mel, is our way of thinking. And that's what my book is about. It's about how we can change our way of thinking. And that's the only barrier. But that's easier said than done, because I think many people today, most people today, at least in the Western world, I would say, are what I would call nation-centric in their worldview. That means they sort of see the world through national glasses. And what my book is about is, how do we put on the world-centric glasses? How do we put on the global glasses? Because when you put the global glasses on, you start to see how this vicious circle of what I call it destructive global competition, this prisoner's dilemma that our politicians are stuck in, you know, you actually see that for the first time. And of course, then it's very obvious. Oh my God, of course, we're going to have to get them to act simultaneously. You know, then it becomes like ABC, it becomes so obvious. But until you put the global glasses on, you can't see it. So it's not that it's difficult, but what's difficult is that's why it's an education thing. That's why it's an education problem. It's not actually it's in us. It's not out there. The problem is in us, in here.
I think that we need to, we're busy setting up a consortium. What we did was, last year, I did a training course, and I shouldn't use the word coerced. I begged a professor to deliver that training to my teachers. And she said, no, it's never been done for teachers before. I said, please, please. And I don't know how, but I managed to convince her. Petra, if you're listening to this, I think you're amazing. And she agreed, and we delivered it to the first group of teachers in November, December. And they are going to be the very first certified carbon literacy teachers in the world. But what we did differently was we had, instead of having professors facilitating, we trained up university students. And they taught the teachers and myself more than anything else. They were incredible. And that's what we're going to be taking forward with them. But as a result of doing that trial, Petra contacted me sort of the day before Christmas, and she said, oh, there's a funding bid for the EU Horizon 2020. I said, there's no way we're going to fill that in, Petra. What have you been on? There's just not a chance. It's like 6 months worth of work. It's got to be in on the 25th of January. She said, no, I think we can do it. John, we started working on that on the 5th of January this year. And I just thought, we've got 20 days to do 6 months worth of work. It's just not going to happen. And Denise, my business partner, she said, she's from Texas. She said, y'all, we can do this. Come on. And I just thought, all right. And we just did not sleep. And everybody pulled together. And I remember one of the professors in Germany, he said, no, I've got kids to look after. And Janice, she says, my son is autistic. I have to look, my husband is the dean of this university, and I have to look, if I can do it, you. And he was like, okay, fine, no problem. And we did it. We got this bid in with seconds left to spare. And we're just waiting for it. But sort of the adrenaline, I couldn't sleep for a couple of days after. I thought, wow, what have we just done? You know? And I was thinking about it that weekend, and I contacted Denise. I said, you know what? This is a great bid. You know, this is just incredible. I said, do you know why the universe got us to do this? And she said, no. I said, because we're now going to take it a couple of steps further. She said, oh, no, not another one. I said, yeah. So what we're busy doing is we're putting together a consortium with universities, creatives like yourselves, with incredible projects, incredible ideas that we would love to get into schools with peer-reviewed research done on those projects. So I would love for you to join that consortium, and for us to, you know, I mean, once we've got the funding, the outline of that consortium together, then we will look for funding to deliver it into a trial group of schools, research it, and then have a look. You know, what's the feedback from the children, from the parents, from the teachers? What does the community think? Does this actually change mindset? What are the university, what are the PhD papers say? I think we should do it.
That's I'd love to be part of that. I'd love to be part of that. Actually, since you mentioned universities, one of the things we want to do at the moment, I'll send you the little one-page brief. We would love to get a university to do a proper study into a multi-issue policy. For example, a climate, CO2 reductions, massive reduction thing, and to pay the big losers, a global currency transactions tax or a global wealth tax, some kind of tax raising thing, just to demonstrate that a multi-issue policy, and then maybe there would be sort of 2 or 3 scenarios on how the tax proceeds would be distributed so that every nation could win, if you like. And we'd love to get that university study done, just simply to show the feasibility and principle of multi-issue policy negotiations and how they could look, because it just seems to me these COP, they just go round and round and round, and it's like, when are we going to say enough? I mean, I'm not saying they should stop, but we've got to start doing something else, because they are not going in the direction they need to go. They're not going nearly fast enough. So, there needs to be a different approach. And I think this study could really help, if it was done by some top universities, could really help to elevate the idea of multi-issue negotiations and Simpol as a way of giving the political impetus to making it happen.
I'm going to try and be your fairy godmother and give you that wish.
I need them. I need lots of them.
We all need lots of fairy godmothers. John, you've got a deal. So
Wonderful.
if we want to buy your book, if those of you that are listening to this or watching this talk, I will put the link to John's book, to buy his book, below. And it'll be in the transcription as well, all the links to everything that you will need, the links to the Simpol video. And we will most certainly, and if there are schools listening, any of our Educate Global schools, or any schools out there that are interested in coming on board and taking part in this, please start pre-registering now, because we would love to know which head teachers out there would be interested in their children learning about this, because this is the future. We know that we're going to be delivering transition engineering as a GCSE course with Professor Susan Crumdeek as of towards the end next year. You know, we're already creating the precursor entry classes lessons to it, and we've got schools lined up that have put their names down to deliver that GCSE. So the same goes for these Simpol lessons. If you are interested, please get in touch with us. Our email is support@educateglobal.org, EDUCCATE global.org. Or if you are somebody with lovely deep pockets and you would love to fund this, please get in touch with us. You've got John Bunzl's details, my details. We would love to hear from you. Or if you are a big brand and you think that this fits with exactly with your ethos and where you see your brand going, we'd love to hear from you. I mean, we've one of our talks that we've had recently is with Alexis Eyre, and she specializes in sustainable marketing. So this is perfect for a brand that wants to make a really powerful and positive change, not just in education, but globally, on a global scale. And I can see that this has got legs. This is going to, the more we teach this, as this spreads, our personal mission here at Educate Global, we intend and we will upskill 100 million teachers in the next year to 2 years. That is our mission. We're not here to build lesson plans. We're here to upskill teachers to do the entry point of climate literacy, then carbon literacy, then transition engineering, and then the Peaceful Planet teacher course. So that's where we're going. We've got amazing people coming on board. So we've got professors and universities and all sorts of organizations saying, we want to make a course, we want to be a part of this. And we're saying, great, come on in. If that's what you want to do, let's do it. And we are going to be working, our consortium is going to be building a very big open source learning portal. And we would love for it to be a global library for a global education reset for good and planet. So that's where we're at. You've heard it here first. And that's it. That's where we're at. So John, we are rocking and rolling. We're going to do this. And we'll set up a meeting with you this week to get started with yourself and Robert. I know that Robert's already got an amazing game. What we'll do is we'll do an interview, a talk with Robert about his games, his climate change game, and he can tell us more about the prisoner's dilemma and his experience of delivering this training into schools. I think we are 3/4 of the way there, really. You've got everything we need.
There's a lot of material there. It's just a question of presenting it in the right way, and
we can do it.
Teachers know how to do that.
Oh, they do. You know, there's no point in building CCPs and turning teachers into automatons. They're just not going to have it. You just have to, once you've upskilled a teacher and you've given them that certification and the entry point, you know, really good, solid, good training, you've got to see, we've just had a testimonial from a school. They've done a whole presentation, one of our GEM schools in the Middle East. And you just sit there and you just think, I didn't ask you to do that. And they've just taken it and just leveraged it and taken it to a whole other level. And they're saying to me, what's next? I think, I can't keep up.
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
John,
I think you're right. No, there's so much. Yeah, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. I'm so excited because I think, you know, schools, that's our future. They're our future.
They are. And we have to all join together. We cannot do this in silos. Operating in silos has got to go. We are now, and meetings about meetings, folks. Enough. Don't bother us with meetings about me. You just come to us and say, this is what we want to do. We want to partner with you. Let's put it all together. Let's move together. Let's go forward. Don't bother us with meetings about meetings and telling us what you're going to do. I don't want it. That's how we did Educate. That's why Educate Global went crazy, because we just went, let's get on with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much, John. All of your info is down there. Is there any email that you would like people to contact you on? It'll be on the page.
You can, you can contact me on info@simpol, that's simpol.org.
Awesome. And we'll see you on the other side.
Lovely. Okay,
Mel, bye, everybody. Have an amazing time. We look forward to telling you about what happened next.
Excellent.
See you later. Bye.
Bye-bye. Cheers.